forget to poke around and see what's going on that website. We'd love to hear your feedback. So let's get started. Retirement planning, Karthik. So when is the right time to start thinking about retirement? Friday evening?
It's the first Monday or Friday or whichever day it is that you start working.
Right.
The first day that you start working and the first time that you get the salary coming into your account or the first earning that you make as an entrepreneur, whichever be the case, from the day you earn your first rupee, it is absolutely imperative that we start thinking about planning some amount of our resources towards this requirement of life.
Talk to us about why you need to plan for retirement. A lot of people start working and they think, well, retirement is still so many years away. I'm just 25, I'm 26, I'm going to put it away later. But talk to us about inflation and why we need to start looking at it from, like you said, the day we start working.
You know, see, what happens is, unfortunately, fortunately, whichever way you look at it, we are living in a country where I do not even see that in the next 3 or 4 decades, or at least in our lifetimes, our government will be rich enough to provide us any sort of support in our retirement years.
Like Social Security in the United
Exactly.
States.
So there is nothing like Social Security, national insurance that I see coming, even in the very, very distant future. Nothing's going to happen. So which means you have to fend for yourself.
Right.
Okay. The third thing that's going to happen is there is no more that family support system like the olden days. You know, people would live close by in a community. You know, everybody, all the brothers and brothers' children, everybody is living in a large house. Today, everybody is living an independent life, and you're miles away from anybody who can even be close to you. And therefore, again, very important that you are independent. And the same applies and will apply to your children as well. So the thing is, while you're going to spend a lot of money to build their lives and careers and things like that, you obviously may actually finish off all the funds that you have. So it's again very important that you build your nest egg first and before you think about doing anything else. So children are not going to be in a position to support you even if they desire to do that. So therefore, there is every reason for us to be in a situation where we are self-sufficient, and more often than not, as I see as a part of our normal practice, that people by the time they come to their retirement, or people who are say 5 years away or 10 years away and who are going to start retirement, without fail, nobody is adequately funded.
Nobody is adequately funded.
Nobody is funded adequately, because it's always like a root shock that, okay, I'll have to cut this, or I'll have to depend on these so many things, or I will not be able to do so many things. So that happens in majority of the cases. Very rarely I find somebody who has got so much accumulation of provident fund and, you know, is going to get such a large packet in superannuation that he doesn't have to worry about. But that's really only applicable to, let's say, the top level, the CEOs, and maybe a level below that. But for the rest of everybody, nobody is adequately funded for retirement.
Nobody is adequately funded for retirement. Talk to us about money, the value of money. A lot of people put money away in savings banks account, FDs, and say, hey, in 30 years this is going to grow, I'm going to be okay and I'm going to retire. But we know that that's a bad idea, because that doesn't necessarily grow at the rate at which inflation is going to overtake us, and our purchasing power just goes down.
Yeah. See, you know, what happens here is situation is different for everybody. Okay. Let's say, technically speaking, somebody who earns 10 lakh rupees a month. Okay. Now, if he were to park money in a fixed deposit and earn a 6-7%, it's okay for him. But somebody who was going to earn, say, 30,000 or 50,000 rupees a month, it's obviously a very, very bad idea to put the money in a fixed deposit. See, so as I said, situation is different. Now, the basic thumb rule that you can really use, which is very, very instrumental for everybody, is just think about the rate of return you're going to get on the investment that you're going to make. Now, if you're going to get a rate of return which is at least about 4 to 5% higher than the prevailing average rate of inflation, okay, then that's a decent investment to do. So what is an average rate of inflation now? We don't really go by the government figures and these inflation figures that come to us time to time, but we have our own hunch and a little bit of, you know, historical experience to see what were we as a family spending last year versus what is our expense now. Has it gone up 5%, 10%? So take an average 6 to 8% is where most people will fall into. So if you are earning, say, 10%, 11%, 12%, which is 4-5% over 6 to 8%, which is your lifestyle inflation, then that should be the investment you're looking at. Which means if anything is close to inflation or about inflation, and especially you have to look at investment minus tax, whatever tax bracket you are in. So once you minus the tax, and if you go under inflation, it's an absolute no. If you're
Right.
near inflation, even that's a bad idea. If you're 2% above inflation, still not such a great idea.
So you need to be very careful. And the other thing is that it's easy to get overwhelmed when you hear somebody talking about retirement planning, and you know, like Karthik mentioned, there are a lot of things that you must keep in mind. It's easy to get overwhelmed. One idea would be, you know, put yourself out of the bind and just divide it into pre-retirement planning and post-retirement planning. And once you have those two things figured out, then you can work systematically. Karthik, talk to us about pre-retirement planning. What are the things that you should think about?
You know, what happens is we are today in a situation, we are living in an environment where we are overcrowded with information in our mind.
Right.
You know, there are so many people telling us so many things, and there are so many options that they really show you all during pre-retirement stage. You know, most of them will not go really wrong, except that, you know, the fundamental difference is going to be between fixed interest type of instruments and everything else that can create wealth. So everybody's talking on the same lines. Everybody's talking on the correct principle that pre-retirement is a phase where you must accumulate. Now, it is to your prudence, the best product or the best set of products that you choose, which will give you the highest appreciation of your wealth.
Right.
But while you do that in your pre-retirement, there is a very important factor that you have to think about, and you have to take that decision now, unfortunately, is what will happen to this instrument post-retirement. And that's where everyone goes wrong.
Right.
You know, every insurance agent, no matter private company, LIC, everybody is going to say, here's a pension plan, you will need so much of money post-retirement, etc., and therefore you have to get into this plan. But post-retirement, no matter how much corpus you have generated, you can't touch it for the rest of your life. And you're going to get an annuity. The current annuity rate is about 4-5%. So which means about 10 years or 20 years or 30 years later, it's going to be 2%.
It's not going to mean anything over there. When
Exactly.
when everything would become twice as costly, 4 times as
Not
costly.
only that,
It's not going to mean anything.
how is that annuity going to increase every year for you?
Right.
Your corpus is going to be absolutely illiquid. You can't touch it till the time you die. And once you die, what's the point of the corpus anyways?
Right.
I mean, of course, you can leave that as a big estate, but for that you can buy insurance and leave that as an estate. So pension plans today are a great vehicle pre-retirement stage, but the problem is post-retirement, and therefore they get eliminated even in pre-retirement stage. So we do not recommend anybody to get into a pension plan because the manufacturers don't have a solution of what to do post-retirement.
Sure. Okay. So no pension plans is what you would say then.
Absolutely, no pension plans of
Okay.
any sort. ULIP, non-ULIP, traditional, everything is absolutely eliminated because it just doesn't make sense.
Okay, we'll talk about specific instruments and some ideas from Karthik on where you should put your money. And if you're in your 30s or maybe a little closer to retirement in your 60s, how should you be looking at your money at this point? Don't panic, we're all